with the microphone, giving her talk today on designing an experiment for comparing user interfaces for legal formalization.
Is it correct? Yeah. Should I? Yeah. All right. It works? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Good afternoon. I would like to welcome you to this presentation, one of the last this day. So thank you for staying so long. My name is Tereza Novotná, and I come from Masaryk University in Brno. And I'm a lawyer, so that's a bit disclaimer if, like in the case of some more technical questions that I won't be maybe able to answer fully. And I am presenting this on behalf of our small team with Libal, who is a researcher from the University of Luxembourg. Yeah, the topic is designing an experiment for comparing user interfaces for legal formalization. Yeah, this is the outline. I will just go straight to the first slide. So the context of this research, which is work in progress research, is that we were developing the normative AI tool, soon to be the Leak AI, whatever, and it's based on annotations of different parts of the text and providing the logical relationship between these parts of the text. Yeah, our goal was to come up with like very practical oriented tool, which will be very simple and easy to use, so that it can be evaluated by lawyers. And yeah, so our approach is very user oriented. So we are emphasizing the interaction between lawyers or users and the interface. But during this ongoing research, we decided to take a step back and ask, because of course we know about all of the other approaches that were also presented today and that are in the research area. So we decided that we would like to come up with an objective evaluation methodology for comparison of the recent methods and approaches, and for like to find out what are the weaknesses and strengths of different approaches, and what are the actual trends, and where we can inspire ourselves, and etc. And also whether our approach will could be used, yeah, in this context. Yeah, so that is the motivation. So there are many approaches, and usually in the presentations or the papers or documentations, they are narrowly focused on a specific legislative X or even a part of the text. They very often lack the evaluation part in the end, or it's just very short. So it's really hard to, I don't know, compare it to some other approach. And yeah, so we would like to come up with the objective methodology, which is a very multidisciplinary issue, of course. So this is the problem, and it is how to evaluate in case of evaluation of legal formalization methods, and we are very focusing on the practical interaction with the user. No, sorry. Sorry. Yeah, in our previous research, we decided that we will go through the methods that are recent and that are used, and we will try to focus on the information, whether and how they are evaluated, and what are the common issues that are dealt with in this research. And we, based on this literature review, we extracted 4 essential parameters. They are not very surprising, but those are the ones that we would like to, that we find crucial for to take into consideration and to evaluate when talking about or when designing legal formalization method. And they are correctness of the legal formalization, transparency, comprehensibility, and multiple interpretation support. I will go through them one by one in a minute. And the proposed evaluation methodology that we find optimal is legal experts evaluation. which is manual assessment of the interaction with the tool or with the method. Yeah. So correctness, that's like the crucial point, right? Yeah, that's the mapping between the legal rule or the text and its representation and logics. The thing is that there's an expectation that there should be one correct logical representation that is then used for the automatic reasoning and all the following things. But how to find it, and the question is even whether it exists, because in some cases it doesn't necessarily need to be the case. So we decided to take the analogy from the Hart's theory of soft and hard cases. Although the theory is focused on cases that go to court, and basically it means that it's supposed to be that the majority of the cases are easy and they should be solved by like very straightforward interpretation of a legal rule or the law, and there's a small part of cases that are harder, that are abstract, and they require much more knowledge and thinking about the case, and like more complex interpretation of the law that is applicable. So based on this, we kind of decided to say that the correct formalization of a certain legal rule is the one that the majority of the legal experts that we employ in the experiment will agree on. So we will have like a broad consensus of on one interpretation. So we will accept it as the correct one. Of course, like in the context and the time that we do the interpretation or the experiment. Transparency. That is something we call the relationship between the legal text and the logical formulae. Because we also wanted to reduce the number of people or researchers working on the formalization itself. So the idea is that if there will be very transparent way of how to see what was the original text and what is the logical interpretation, and if it will be very clearly visible, then we do not need another expert like logician or computer scientist who will explain this to the lawyer, so that the lawyer can itself evaluate the correctness of the logical representation. So yeah, that's the transparency. It's the main feature for reducing the number of experts involved, which is also, of course, related to reducing costs and time and all of these other things that we need during the experiment. Yeah, and the transparency should be evaluated from the regard of the simplicity. So it's like comprehensible and simple. Comprehensibility is a feature that is related to the user interface or the thing that is presented to the lawyer who is doing the legal formalization. So it can be expressed in a question of how cognitively demanding is it to formalize the legal text and understand the result. We think that it's very crucial that the method or the user interface is as friendly as possible and as simple as possible. But of course, there needs to be a balance between the simplicity, so that it's like it can be used by lawyers without any further help of other people involved. But of course, it also needs to be complex enough to involve all of the different legal relationship or different legal sources that may influence the certain situation. So yeah, finding the right balance between these two is a crucial point of the comprehensibility feature. And the last one, that's multiple interpretation support. which is our answer to the hard cases or the cases that are not very straightforward and that are harder to interpret. We think that the legal formalization tool should be dynamic, so that like the change of the interpretation is easy, and it should be it should allow to include more interpretations in case that that the situation or the legal rule is not is controversial. Yeah. And also, from the point of view of temporal and interpretative development of meaning of a legal text, it should be easy to change these interpretations. Again, this is the question of balance of granularity and complexity versus simplicity. So we want the interface to be easy enough for use, but we also need it to be complex enough to be able to include different legal sources and different influences, maybe like interpretation in legal, in co-decisions, or I don't know, some other support legislations, etc. So yeah, again, the question of balance, and yeah. How we want to do, how we want to find the tools to be evaluated in the experiment. We wanted to choose very objective methodology, so to find a search query, to go through Google Scholar and take everything that we get, or yeah, that's it. But that's something we will do, so when we start the experiment itself. So yeah, that's just for now. And this is the final part. Now I'm going to talk about how we think we should design this human evaluation experiment. So we would like to gather ideally a group of legal experts, and we would like to evaluate with them the user experience with the different tools that we will get from the query or from the selecting of the tools, and and they should be presented with the tools, and they should perform some tasks with them, and then they should evaluate it. What is very important is that we have to select coherent and complex enough section of a regulatory text, because we know that just a short section doesn't really tell us a lot. But of course, if it's like too complicated, then it will take a lot of time, and there will be probably bigger differences in the interpretation that can be hard to interpret in the end. So that's quite a crucial point, actually. Also, we want the text to include different legal modalities and different legal institutes. And of course, we have to provide the evaluators proper instructions and guidelines. Not all the tools have them. We will probably make them ourselves, but we are not the authors. That is something that we need to deal with. Yeah. And these are some last remarks that we have from, because like human evaluations, that's a very multidisciplinary thing. So these are some remarks we have from sociological surveys and questionnaires. So we would like the size of the expert group be as big as we can get, but of course that depends on the time and cost and everything. The composition should be variable. Yeah. Then we have to, of course, pay a lot of attention on the questions. They should be on all of the parameters that I mentioned, and they have to be non-introducing. That's quite important. We want the rating to be on a scale, because it's the easiest way how to interpret the results of the experiment. That is quite interesting. There should be always an even number of options, because if people rate something on a scale and they do not know, they choose the middle point, and that doesn't really say much about their choice. Yeah. And we would like to also do the inter-rater agreement measuring because we want to know whether the evaluation is highly subjective. From my previous evaluation experiments I did with different legal information retrieval methods, I found that the inter-rater agreement was quite low, so that the evaluation of the lawyers wasn't highly subjective, but of course it was different methods. So let's see. Yeah, because the subjectivity of the evaluation, of course, has an influence on the interpretation of the data from the evaluation experiment. Yeah, the future work is to actually perform the experiment. That's for us, and that's all. Thank you very much for your attention.
So there was a question online asking about your methodology in choosing to minimize the number of participants rather than getting more participants for, over less time. Could you address that to the person who asked?
Yeah, sorry, can you say it again? Or because, so what was the...
The question was why choose fewer people for more time than more people for less time?
Yeah, okay, why more people? Okay. Yeah, I do not know the answer from my head. It's usually about the balance between the time and the cost we have, and of course the time that we can give to one legal expert evaluating the tools. There's the thing that, of course, we want the evaluation group to be as big as possible because then the results are more significant. Yeah, but I do not have the straight answer to this, so we have to find a balance. Yeah.
Thank you for a very nice presentation.
Thank you.
Very, very relevant. So we had a PhD student doing these kind of user evaluations on the tools we developed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that might be some inspiration.
Yes.
And I think, one thing you should be careful about is whether you evaluate the tool or the method or how well the people were trained in using the tool. And so there are a lot of pitfalls.
Yes.
Yes. And then I guess also for the literature review, maybe also look outside the legal normal sources, because there might actually be people in the computer science domain publishing somewhere else who are doing stuff like this. So, but I'm happy to talk more. I think there's some really good criteria you have set up. So looks
Thank
very
you. Yeah, I would love to definitely continue because the evaluations are really my thing. So.
This will be more comment for the community, since it's the last talk. Maybe we can also talk about the community. And it is about evaluations in other fields, especially in the formal methods. So in, for example, maybe like 10, 15, it's hard to say when, there were several tools for software synthesis, and various people were trying to work on the software synthesis. And then the community sit down and says, okay, we want to be able to evaluate our tools, so they kind of agree what will be the input format, and then actually you could see, how you can get better comparison of the tools, because it was, it's kind of, I got relatively good overview of what is happening in the field exactly from the course that we were teaching, and very often tools could not be compared. But if there would be some joint intersection of which you could say, okay, this is what every tool that we expect is able to do, that's required input format, then you would actually get a better understanding what is happening. It's not only synthesis. Set competition has their own Dimex format. Then there is in the SVComp is for the competition of verification tools. So there are various input formats in which actually, formal methods and verification community are, are competing. So it would be interesting to maybe, to hear I mean, yes, I know that that right now those tools look like there could not be combined, but if you look like, like initial state of the synthesis tool, everyone was pushing their own synthesis tools, but yet somehow people managed to reach common agreement. So it's maybe not the question, but
no, but that's a great comment. Thank you
for the community as a whole. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe just to add to what Ružica said, it's also the definition of benchmark suites, right? So examples, case studies that different tools can be compared on.
Yeah, thank you.
If you want to be involved in preparing this benchmark for the next session of ProLaLa', please contact us.
Yeah, along those lines and along these lines, I'm wondering how much for us as a community, this might be part of an HCI question rather than a numbers or a semantics benchmark, and maybe something to think about for future iterations of the workshop is try and reach out to more people in the HCI community and do things like run more user surveys and get actual feedback from people on our tools.
So any more questions? Okay, let's thank our speaker.
Thank you.